there, welcome to the Psychologist NGTV with me, Dr. Blessing Ntamu. Today we are doing intentional parenting. We're going to talk about punishment as a disciplinary measure. And under this topic, we shall be talking about what punishment is. We shall discuss some types of punishment, and then we are going to go right on to talk about the effective use of punishment as a disciplinary measure, and then we'll look at some advantages and disadvantages of punishment. If this is your first time on the Psychologist NGTV, please kindly click on the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel, and also click on the bell sign to enable notifications so you'll be notified each time a new video is uploaded. Here we discuss very educational topics that you can apply to everyday life to make your life better. Okay, so before I go ahead to talk about punishment, let me tell you a little story. So I attended the Parents Teachers Network, which some people call PTA meeting, in my children's school. And usually during these meetings, I do not like to talk a lot, probably because I actually have access to the administration of the school, and when I have complaints, I usually channel them to the school administration. So during the PTA meeting, I do more of listening. And so whilst this meeting went on, there was this particular parent who stood up repeatedly, time and time again, and her emphasis was on that her children should be severely punished. In fact, in her own words, she just kept saying, beat them very well. I know other parents will say, don't beat my children, but for me, beat my children, beat them. She kept repeating this on and on, and I was just trying to sit still. And after a while, she stood up again and went the same thing, beat them. These children need to be beaten, beat them. You spare the rod, you spoil the child, and blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't help it. I had to raise up my hand to say something. Why did I have to speak? Because children are not animals. They have thinking faculties. And most times, what we see as a disobedience, as a bad behavior, might just be a way of seeking attention. It might just be the only way they know to respond to their environment and other things. And most times when we explain to our children, when we engage our children in dialogue, we can actually get them to behave better. What I'm trying to say in essence is that punishment is not the first choice in discipline. That is to say, there are other disciplinary measures that are much more effective than punishment. As a matter of fact, punishment should be a last resort when other disciplinary measures have been employed and have failed. So it's not beat them. They are not cows that cannot think. You know, these nomadic people drive cows and they're beating them for everything. No, our children and our learners are not cows. They can think. We can engage them in dialogue. We can use other more productive means of punishment. And so before, I stood up and I tried to explain to her why it should not just be beat them. I tried to tell her that, first of all, punishment should be commensurate with the offense that had been committed, and that beating should not be the first option, So I can't quite say if I convinced her or not, but at least I made an attempt. And then I decided to make this video to educate other people who probably think like she does. So this video, the target audience, parents and also teachers, especially primary and secondary school teachers. So what is punishment? Punishment is any environmental event that is programmed contingent upon a response or a behavior with the purpose of either reducing the rate of the response or reducing the probability of reoccurrence of the behavior. That is to say, any environmental event that is conditioned following a behavior with the purpose of either reducing the probability that that behavior will occur again, or reducing the number of times that the behavior occurs. Now, like I said, there are different types of punishment. We have punishment by application, which in psychology we refer to as positive punishment. Okay, that's application of an undesirable or an aversive stimulus contingent upon the behavior with the purpose of inhibiting the behavior, of reducing the probability of reoccurrence of the behavior, or reducing the rate of the behavior. Okay, now we have also punishment by removal, which we refer to in psychology as negative punishment. And that is when we withdraw a privilege, more or less. when we withdraw a desirable stimulus contingent upon a behavior with the purpose of reducing the probability of reoccurrence of the behavior or reducing the rate of the response. Okay, so those are two types of punishment. Another type of punishment is corporal punishment, and this is the most risky type of punishment, and I'll tell you why as we go on. Corporal punishment is intentional application of pain contingent upon a behavior with the purpose of inhibiting the behavior, that is to say, reducing the rate of response or the probability of reoccurrence of a behavior. So we've mentioned three types of punishment here. Punishment by application. Actually, corporal punishment is punishment by application, but application of an undesirable stimulus generally, or of an unfavorable stimulus. Yeah, but when it comes to corporal punishment, there's application of pain. So there are some undesirable stimulus that may not be painful, physically painful, but corporal punishment has to do with physical pain. There are other undesirable stimulus that could be maybe emotionally painful and undesirable, but corporal punishment has to do with physical pain. Okay, so I hope we've gotten that clear. And now we are going to talk about effective use of punishment. But before I speak about that, first of all, we need to know that when we punish a behavior, when we punish an individual, actually, we are punishing the behavior of the individual. It is the behavior that is undesirable. We are not punishing the individual per se. That is to say, we are not passing a message across to the individual that he's not liked, he's not desirable, but it's the behavior that he is engaged in that is undesirable, that is not liked. Okay, so basically you like this individual, you have unconditional love and acceptance for the individual, but the behavior is unacceptable and is undesirable, and that's the behavior. The target is the behavior. We do not punish people to satisfy our anger response, to abate our anger. And we do not punish people, really. We punish behavior. That's very important. And like I said earlier on, punishment is not the first port of call when there's an undesirable behavior. That is to say, in behavior modification, punishment is not the first choice. Okay, so we try other methods. And in an event where other methods prove abortive, then we can employ punishment. But when we use punishment, there's a way to effectively use punishment if you want the right, results. And most times when we use punishment the wrong way, we do not get the right results. Like I said earlier, also, some behaviors that we would classify as negative behaviors from children especially are attention-seeking behaviors. And sometimes punishments serve to fulfill the need for attention. So that means instead of inhibiting the behavior, it will actually ensure that the behavior is repeated. So when someone is seeking attention by being disrespectful to a teacher in class, now when you punish that student, that learner, you have actually given him the attention he desires. And then the classmates will cheer him after you've given him probably 5 strokes of the cane. They say, "Hey, hard man." Maybe they won't cheer him in your presence, but they will do that after the class. And that is what he's seeking. So that behavior you were seeking to punish will not be inhibited. It will rather be repeated. So we need to understand these things, when we utilize punishment. So one of the principles of effective use of punishment is that punishment must be explained. Now, when you punish a child for a particular behavior, it is very useful to explain to that child or the learner why he or she is being punished. You're not in their minds. You don't know what's going on in their minds. So you have to let them know exactly why they're being punished so they understand. If they understand why they're being punished, they are less likely to repeat that behavior in the future. Now, the second principle is that punishment has to be swift. That is to say, punishment has to be given immediately the behavior occurs. So there's no instance for just wait till your father comes, or just wait. Sometimes when our children misbehave before visitors, before guests, we say just wait until the visitor leaves. That's wrong. For some children at a certain age, especially at the younger ages, that could be confusing because you delay that punishment, and then maybe immediately after the visitor leaves, he or she helps you to clear the table, and then you call that child and punish the child. So the child is now confused. He doesn't understand if he's being punished for clearing the table or for the previous bad behavior. So punishment, for it to be effective, it has to be swift. It has to be delivered immediately the behavior occurs. And also, when you tell the child, wait until your father comes, you're succeeding your authority So that child begins to see you less as an authority figure. He sees you as someone who cannot do anything until daddy comes. So whoever is there when this bad behavior is being carried out should be the person to punish, and punish immediately. Okay, when we also tell children what not to do, or tell learners what not to do, we have to also point out to them an alternative course of behavior. So if you say to children, don't throw trash in the sitting room or on the ground, you should be able to tell them, throw trash in the dustbin, and you should provide a dustbin. Okay, so when you tell them not to do a thing, you tell them what to do. Point out the alternative acceptable behavior. Now, another principle for effective punishment is that we should reward good behavior. So after you've punished the bad behavior, when the child makes an effort and engages in the positive and the good behavior, you should reward good behavior. You should reinforce good behavior, and reinforcement is a topic for another day, because that also has guiding principles. So always reinforce positive behaviors. Punishment, another principle of punishment is that punishment should not damage the child's self-esteem. Like I tried to explain earlier, it is not the child as a target, it is the behavior. So when you punish a child in such a way that the child's self-esteem is damaged, you've done more harm than good. That's been penny wise and pound foolish. So don't attack the person of the child. Don't attack the person, attack the behavior. Don't say you are stupid. Probably you could say that was a stupid behavior. Don't say you're an idiot. Don't say to the child, parents use all forms of ways and teachers to get back at learners and children when we try to correct them. That's not because most times we're just trying to abate the anger that we feel at their behavior, but we should be careful so we don't do harm that will be long lasting, that will last them a lifetime. Yeah, so these are some principles of application of punishment. I'm sure there are others that might have left out. Probably I'll do, if I realize I've left out some, I'll probably do a future video. But for now, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of punishment. This is important because I want to emphasize the disadvantages of punishment that make punishment not to be a first spot of call in discipline. So some advantages of punishment is that when other forms of disciplinary measures have failed, like reinforcement and the others, punishment becomes a last resort. Okay, now punishment in some instances can inhibit negative behaviors. That's an advantage too. Another advantage of punishment is that it has an ingredient of vicarious learning. So when you punish one child for carrying out a behavior, other children who are onlookers, the punishment of that child serves as a warning to them, as a deterrent to them. So there's vicarious learning. They learn that, okay, if I engage in this behavior, I'm going to be punished, so that it discourages them from engaging in that behavior. Now, these are some advantages of punishment. Sometimes punishment also gives faster results. Okay, yeah, these are advantages of punishment, but there are a lot of disadvantages of punishment I'd like you to be aware of. Now, the first disadvantage of punishment is that punishment triggers negative emotions. Emotions like fear, like anxiety, are triggered by punishment. So the child becomes afraid. The child is always anxious. The child who is always punished is always anxious, is always afraid, and all of those. Now, the second disadvantage is that these negative emotions will be conditioned to the person who carries out the punishment. So the child is now afraid of the teacher or the parent who punishes all the time. And the anxiety and even hate. Some children hate people for punishing them, and they hate the person who punished. So that's also really negative. Now, punishment leads to withdrawal and inhibits other desirable behaviors. So when you punish a child frequently, not only will the behavior you're trying to inhibit be inhibited, the child becomes withdrawn and also would not engage in other positive behaviors, other desirable behaviors. Now, another disadvantage of punishment is that punishment breeds aggressive and antisocial behavior. So when you punish children who are often punished, especially corporal punishment, develop aggressive behavior, aggressive response. So corporal punishment has been abolished in Poland since 1783, and then in the whole of Europe also, corporal punishment has been abolished because of the negative consequences of corporal punishment. As a matter of fact, some human rights groups see corporal punishment as a human rights crime, that's denying the children of their rights, their human rights, and so it's not advised at all. Another thing about punishment, like I said, it could actually be reinforcing. It could actually be reinforcing and ineffective. Well, that's more or less all about punishment. I hope that I've been able to convince you that there are better methods of discipline which we'll be discussing in the future, in future videos, than punishment. And if at all you're going to employ punishment, please use it effectively, use it the right way, and use it consciously as well. That's all for today. I wish you a very pleasant day ahead and lots of love from me to you. And please subscribe to my channel. Please follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. And then you should leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you've learned. Let me hear your own opinion about these videos. And I'll be there in the comment section responding to all of your comments. Also, like this video if you like it. But thank you for listening and have a pleasant day out there. God bless you.